Are Cook Islands trusts beneficial for everyone who wants to protect their assets from creditors? Well, absolutely not. In fact, Cook Islands trusts are, uh, in some sense, the last asset protection tool that you would want to consider. So, why? Well, the reason is that in many states there are statutes and court decisions that can very effectively protect your assets from civil judgments in a very simplified structure without having to go to an elaborate foreign trust. And the first thing you want to look at is what, of course, the nature of your assets and what do the laws of my state provide for protection. And you need an evaluation, or I suggest that you talk to an asset protection attorney, not a trust company, but an asset protection attorney, to discover what assets are currently protected under state law. For example, in our state of Florida and other states, Texas, Iowa, and others, we have ample and unlimited, actually, homestead protection, so that for many people, their most valuable asset is their house, and they'll find that their home is protected under the Constitution or statutes of their home state from creditors. Secondly, in many states, again, like Florida as an example, there are statutes and cases that provide excellent protection from creditors for marital assets. So where you have a married couple and their assets are owned husband and wife jointly, that these assets are protected from creditors of either spouse. In addition, there are state laws as well as federal laws protecting your retirement assets from judgment liens. And many people, besides their home, the next biggest asset is their retirement accounts. So just by those examples, if you have someone who has a valuable house, an ample retirement plan, and some marital financial accounts, they'll find that state law, as it is going to give them excellent asset protection, and there's no reason to even consider an offshore trust, which of course is complicated and expensive. So the first step in offshore trust planning should be an asset protection review from an asset protection attorney who has some experience in this area to see if your assets are already not protected. Now, you'll find that in many states, you don't have good state protection, okay? So that the majority of states have very limited homestead protection and do not have protection of marital property. Secondly, even if you live in one of those states, well, what if you're not married? Or what if you get divorced? Or what if your spouse dies and, of course, ends the marriage? Then you're going to lose those protections. So we find that our clients in sort of the non-favorable protective states, not to single anyone out, but California and New York are two of those states, and other states where they don't have marital protections, Texas, Washington have community property. So we get a lot of inquiries from those states that don't have excellent statutory protection from creditors. And for people in those states, right, or people in those marital situations, then the Cook Islands Trust is an excellent asset protection tool, and probably maybe the only one available other than some federal retirement protection. So I think the first thing is that to go into offshore trust analysis with the idea of not jumping into an offshore trust, but first seeing what assets are protected as they are in the state where you live, and do that analysis. Then if you find that you have assets that are not protected, then you can consider more elaborate protections. It could be an offshore trust, it could be a domestic type of trust, but to look at asset protection as a step-by-step basis, process, starting with the simplest, cheapest option, then going to something a little more complex, and if it doesn't do the job, then you would consider an offshore trust. But I think that for most of us, there are adequate and cost-efficient asset protection tools that are simpler and less expensive and less complex on an ongoing basis than an offshore asset protection trust.